All right, 5.7, measures of central tendency, which refers to mean, median, and mode. All right. So the mean is just another word for the average. So if you have a list of numbers, you add them all up and you divide by how many numbers there are. And then the median is the middle number. So you put all the numbers in order from smallest to largest and then find the middle number. So that finding the middle number only works if you have an odd number of values. If you have an even number of values, you have to find the two middle numbers and then average those. And then the mode is the one that has the highest frequency, or in other words, the one that appears the most number of times. So if nothing's repeated, then you would not have a mode, but it could also have multiple modes is also a possibility. All right, so number one, and we want to find the mean, median, and mode. So to find the mean, we're going to add them all up. And then there's 5 of them in the list of numbers, so we're going to divide that sum by 5. So whenever we add them all up, we get 22, and then 22 divided by 5. Oh, sorry, I had it frozen, I forgot, sorry. So 4 plus 6 plus 1 plus 3 plus 8, we add them all up, that gives us 22. And then we need to do 22 divided by 5. So that's going to end up as, let's see, that would go in 4 times. So 4.4. So the mean is 4.4. Are you Connor? Okay. All right, so then let's try to find the median. So before we do that, we put them all in order from smallest to largest. So that's going to be 1, 3, 4, 6, 8. All right, so the median is the middle number. So it has the same amount of numbers on either side of it. So in this case, it has 2 numbers on the left of it and 2 numbers on the right of it. So that's the median. All right, and then what about the mode? There's nothing repeated, so there's no mode. All right, number 2, same thing. So to find the mean, we're going to add them all up. So 8 plus 4 plus 6 plus 1 plus 3 plus 8. And then in this case, there's 6 numbers in the list, so we're going to divide that sum by 6. All right, so that's going to be 30 divided by 6, which is equal to 5. And then we need to, in order to find the median, we need to put them in order from smallest to largest. So 1, 3, 4, 6, 8, 8. All right, so in this case, since there's 6 numbers in the list and 6 is an even number, so there isn't one single middle number. So we have to find the 2 numbers that are in the middle, and we're going to average those. So in this case, that would be 4 and 6. All right, so like I said, the median always has the same amount of numbers on the left as it is on the right. So in this case, the median would be 4 plus 6 divided by 2. So that's 10 divided by 2, which is 5. So the median is 5. And then what about the mode? What is the mode in this problem? 8. Because there's 2 8s. All right. Number 3, so same thing. So let's find the mean. So 1 plus 8 plus 4 plus 6 plus 1 plus 3 plus 8 plus 1. And there's 8 numbers in this list, so we divide that sum by 8. All right. And I believe that's going to be what? 32? So 32 divided by 8 is 4. So to get the median, I'm going to line everything up from smallest to largest. So I have 1, 1, 1, and then I have 3, 4, 6, 8, 8. All right, so again, there's 8 numbers in this list. 8 is an even number. So I'm going to have to take my 2 middle numbers and average them. So in this case, that's going to be 3 and 4. So the median would be equal to 3 plus 4 divided by 2, which equals 7 over 2, which equals 3.5. And what is the mode in this case? 1, not 8, because there's more 1s than 8s. So the mode isn't necessarily every number that's repeated. Since there's more 1s than there are 8s, just 1 is the mode. All right, any questions? Okay, so in this case, our data set is given in the form of a frequency table. So F stands for frequency, okay? All right, so what this is telling me is that I have, in my data set, it contains 2 zeros, 3 ones, 1 2, and 2 3s. Okay, so if I was to write out my data set, I would have 0, 0, 3, wait a second, no, not 3. Sorry, 1, 1, 1, and then 1, 2, so there you go, and 2 3s. There. So that would be my data set. So that data set was relatively quick and easy to write out, but the frequency table can really come in handy whenever your frequencies are really high. Like, you know, what if I was to throw in a 0 on each of these? Then it wouldn't be so quick and easy to write out, because I'd have to write out 0 20 times, and I'd have to write 1 30 times, and that wouldn't be very practical. All right, so to find the mean, so a quick way to find the mean with this type of data set is to multiply across each row. So multiply the x value times the frequency. So 0 times 2 equals 0. 1 times 3 equals 3. 2 times 1 equals 2. And 3 times 2 equals 6. Okie dokie. All right, so then we're going to add those together. So when we add them together, 3 plus 2 plus 6, it's going to equal 11. And I'm also going to add up my frequency column to know the total amount of numbers in my data set. So 2 plus 3 plus 1 plus 2, so that equals 8. And then finally, to actually answer the mean, I just have to do 11 divided by 8. So 8 will go into 11 one time. 1 times 8 is 8. 11 minus 8 is 3. Bring down a 0, and then 8 would go into 30 3 times. 3 times 8 is 24. 30 minus 24 is 6. Bring down another 0. 8 would go into 60 6 times. 60, so 6, oh wait, I think I meant 7 times. That's right, okay, not 6. All right, yeah, 7 times 8 is 56, and then 60 minus 56 is 4, and then you bring down another 0, and 8 goes into 40 5 times, and that's it, because 5 times 8 is 40, and 40 minus 40 is 0. So the mean is equal to 1.375. All right. Any questions about that? Okay. Find the mode. So what is the mode for number 5? So this is the case where it does have two different modes. The mode is 1 and 8 because they have the same amount of 1s and 8s. So in that case, they're both the mode. So the only time you have multiple modes is if they have to be repeated the same amount of times. So the highest frequency that any of those items have is a frequency of 2. There's nothing that's repeated more than 2 times, but there are 2 different numbers that are repeated 2 times. All right, does that make sense? Any questions about that? And then what about the mode for number 6? There's not one. Okay. All right. And then, let's see. So we're going to go ahead and move on to chapter 6. All right, so we're going to talk about ratios and rates. Okay, and so we're going to write the ratio as a reduced fraction. So if it says 8.1 to 10, so I would start by writing 8.1 over 10. All right, but having part of your fraction is a decimal is not really appropriate, so we want to make that not a decimal. So you could say that you're going to move the decimal point to the right, which is the same thing as saying you're going to multiply it by 10, but you just have to do the same thing to the numerator and the denominator. So if you move this decimal point one time to the right, and then do the same thing to the denominator, so that will end up being 81 over 100. And then if that was able to be reduced, I would reduce it, but it's not, so it's my final answer. And number 2, 35 meters to 100 meters. So 35 meters over 100 meters. So I can just cancel out meters, and then I can also reduce it by 5, because 5 goes into 35 7 times, and 5 goes into 100 20 times. So my final answer for that would be 7 over 20. Okay. Number 3, 120 miles over 80 miles. So I can cancel out the miles, and I can also cancel out one of those zeros. So it's basically 12 over 8. And then 4 goes into 12 3 times, and 4 goes into 8 2 times. So it's just 3 over 2. And then number 4, so I have 25 and a half. I know days and days are just going to cancel out, so I'll just leave that off. 25 and a half over 2 5/6. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is change both of those into improper fractions. So 2 times 25 is 50, plus 1 is 51, so that's 51 over 2. And then 6 times 2 is 12, plus 5 is 17, so that's going to be 17 over 6. So I'm dividing by a fraction, so I'm going to flip it and multiply. So it's going to be 51 over 2 multiplied by 6 over 17. And then let me see how I can reduce it. So I know that 2 goes into 6 3 times. And 17 goes into 51 3 times as well. So then it's just 3 times 3, which equals 9. I guess we could say there's a 1 on the bottom. So since they're asking for a ratio type thing, they might want it as 9 over 1 in the computer, or just 9. Either way, it seems fine to me, but I'm not sure if the computer would want you to write it as 9 over 1 or 9. I'm not sure, but that wouldn't be too hard to find out. Okay, number 5 says 12 days to 3 weeks. Okay, so this one has different units. So basically, we need to make sure that it has the same units. So it doesn't matter if we convert it to days or weeks, as long as it's the same. So I know that there are 7 days in a week. So seems like easier to me to change 3 weeks into days. Just multiply 3 times 7 is 21. So 3 weeks is the same thing as 21 days. All right, so now 12 days to 21 days. So now I can just put 12 over 21. And then 3 goes into 12 4 times, and 3 goes into 21 7 times. So it's 4 over 7. All right. Okay, so those were ratios. So ratios have the same units, or they can be converted into the same units. Rates do not have the same units. They have like 2 completely different units. So 4 inches of rain in 18 hours. Okay, but I'm just going to write 4 inches of rain over 18 hours. And then I'm just going to try to reduce the numbers. So like 2 goes into 4 2 times, and 2 goes into 18 9 times. Okay, so that's 2 inches of rain in 9 hours. So that's just the reduced rate. All right, 275 miles in 11 hours. And let's see, does 11 go into 275? because nothing else goes into 11, so that's the only way it would be reducible. Let's see, 11 could go into 27 two times. 2 times 11 is 22, and then 27 minus 22 is 5, and bring down the 5, and 11 goes into 55 5 times. So yes, so 11 goes into 275 exactly 25 times. So that reduces to 25 miles, and 11 goes into 11 one time. So that's 25 miles in 1 hour. Or in other words, we might commonly call that 25 miles per hour. Okay. So a unit rate means that pretty much like the denominator has to be 1. So regardless of whether that number goes in evenly or not, you're just going to divide the first number by the second number. All right, so 75 miles in 5 hours. So we're going to just do 5 into 75 and divide it. So that's 15. 15 miles per hour. And then $1.50 for 4 pounds. So we want to find the unit rate, which is, in other words, the price per pound. So 4 into $1.50. So 4 can't go into 1, so I'll put a 0 there. 4 goes into 15 3 times. 3 times 4 is 12. 15 minus 12 is 3. Bring down the 0. 4 would go into 30 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. 30 minus 28 is 2. So let's do another 0. 4 would go into 20 5 times. So 5, yeah, and that's it. So that's your price per pound. 37.5 cents, I guess you could call that. So this is one situation where you're not rounding it off to the nearest cent because you don't have to, because you're not paying exactly, you can't pay, you know, $0.375, but that can still be the unit price. You could have another item that was, you know, 0.376 per pound or whatever. All right. And I calculate unit prices all the time when I'm shopping. You know, at Walmart, they tell you the unit price a lot of times on the tag. You look at it. Sometimes they don't, so you have to calculate it. All right. So which of these is a better deal? 10 ounces of shampoo for $2.50 or 24 ounces of shampoo for $6? Okay, so to answer that question, I'm just going to calculate the unit price of each one. So 10 into 250. So 10 can't go into 2, so you put a 0 right there. 10 goes into 25 2 times. 2 times 10 is 20. All right, so that's exactly 25 cents per ounce. And then for the other one, 24 into $6. 24 would go into 60 2 times. 2 times 24 is 48. 60 minus 48 is 12. Bring down a 0. And then 24 would go into 120 5 times exactly. So that is exactly 25 cents an ounce also. So neither one of those is a better deal because they're both 25 cents per ounce. So most of the time when you buy a larger container, you get a better price, unit price, but that's not always the case. So you should check. You shouldn't always assume that just because it's a bigger container or just because it's at Sam's Club that it's a better deal. Sometimes a lot of times it is, but sometimes it's not. For example, like my husband gets the Suave shampoo, and like they have like the small bottles and big bottles, and like I calculated the unit price, and the unit price on the bigger bottle was actually higher. So I was like, well, why am I gonna do that then? I mean, it's only, like $1 shampoo anyway, whatever, but still. All right. Okay. All right. So next we'll talk about proportions. So proportion is when you have like one ratio set equal to another ratio. Okay, so 1 raisin is to 5 cornflakes as 8 raisins is to 40 cornflakes. So to write that as a proportion, you would write basically 1/5 equals 8/40. And 12 errors is to 8 pages as 1.5 errors is to 1 page. So you would write 12/8 equals 1.5/1. All right, so for a true proportion, if the proportion equation is true, then you can cross multiply. So if A over B equals C over D, then A times D is equal to B times C. So they want you to use that to answer whether or not these proportion equations are true or false. So to make it easier, I would reduce each fraction individually, first of all. So like for 8/6, 2 can go into 8 4 times, and 2 can go into 6 3 times. So that's 4/3. And then 20/15, you can reduce that by 5s. 5 goes into 20 4 times, and 5 goes into 15 3 times. So actually, yeah, they want you to actually check this by cross multiplying, like multiply 8 by 15 and multiply 6 by 20 and see if they're equal. But to me, it's a lot easier. I can just reduce both of those fractions, and then it's just completely obvious. Either they're equal to each other or not. So in this case, they are. So that's true. Obviously, 4/3 equals 4/3. And on number 4, both of those fractions are already reduced, and so it's obvious that they're not equal to each other. So I know this is going to be false. I could also show it by cross multiplying, though. It wouldn't be very hard to show. 7 times 5 is 35, and 3 times 9 is 27, and obviously those are not equal to each other, so therefore it is false. And with number 5, I would just, I mean, to me, that's pretty obviously false also. you could like move the decimal point on each one to the right one time just to make it a little bit nicer looking. So 7/4 equals 3/1. Okay, obviously that's not true. You could also show it by cross multiplying. 7 times 1 is 7, and 4 times 3 is 12. And obviously those are not equal to each other, so it's false. Okay, number 6. All right, well, fractions always make it fun. So I think I would just go ahead and straight up cross multiply this to start with, and I think that will be just as easy as anything else. So 2/3 multiplied by 3/10, and we want to determine if that is equal to 8/5 multiplied by 1/7. Okay, so over here, these 3's would cancel out, and I know 2 goes in a 10 5 times, so that would end up being 1/5. And then over here, there's nothing to reduce. That's just going to be 8/35. Okay, so at that point, it seems pretty obvious that those are not equal to each other, but you could still cross multiply it one more time to show that 1 times 35 is 35, and 5 times 8 is 40, and those are clearly not equal to each other, so false. Okay. Then actually solving the proportion. So to actually solve it, I would cross multiply. So x times 9, that's 9x equals, and then 3 times 12 is 36. And then, so now I just have 9x equals 36, and then I can just divide both sides by 9, which gives me x equals 4. All right. And then number 8. So I think it'll make it I think the easiest thing to do here is reduce 25/100. I think that'll make it a lot easier. I know 25 goes into 100 4 times, so I could go ahead and reduce that to 1/4. So 1/4 equals -7/n. And then when I cross multiply, so 1 times n is n, and then 4 times -7 would be -28, and I'm already done. N equals -28, and that's it. All right, number 9, I guess I'll just go ahead and cross multiply. So 8/15 times n, so I'm just going to write that as 8/15 n equals, and then I've got to do 24 times 5/9. So 24 is the same thing as 24/1. And then let's see what we could reduce. So 3 goes into 9 3 times, and 3 goes into 24 8 times. So then 8 times 5 is 40, and 1 times 3 is 3. So I have 8/15 n equals 40/3. All right, so to get n by itself, I would go ahead and you could call it dividing by 8/15, but I know that's going to be the same thing as multiplying by 15/8. So I'm just going to go ahead and write it as multiplying by 15/8. All right, so that cancels out. So that'll just be n equals, and then let's see. 3 goes into 15 5 times, and 8 goes into 40 5 times. And 5 times 5 is 25. So therefore, n equals 25. All right, number 10. So the first thing I want to do is change that mixed number to an improper fraction. So 1 times 3 is 3, plus 1 is 4, so that's the same thing as 4/3. All right, and then 5 times a is 5a equals, and then I have to multiply 2 times 4/3. So 2 is the same as 2 over 1. 2 times 4 is 8. 1 times 3 is 3. So that gives me 5a equals 8/3. And then to get a by itself, I would just divide by 5, which when I'm doing it with a fraction, I would probably say that's the same thing as multiplying by 1/5. And then 8 times 1 is 8, and 3 times 5 is 15. So a equals 8/15. All right. So number 11 says it takes a word processor 30 minutes to word process and spell check 4 pages. Find how many pages she can word process and spell check in 4.5 hours. Okay. So when we set up our proportion, we're going to have our two fractions equal to each other. And it's important that the numerator of each fraction represents the same units, and the denominator of each fraction represents the same units. So it doesn't really matter which one is on top and bottom as long as it's the same for both fractions. So the first thing I like to do is write down which units I'm going to put on top and which units I'm going to put on the bottom. So we're basically talking about a certain number of pages in a certain number of amount of time. All right, but in this case, they gave us 2 different times in 2 different units. So again, we want to choose which units to use, and it doesn't matter, just whichever one seems easier to you. So I think to me, it's easier because I know 30 minutes is half an hour, so I can just change 30 minutes to 0.5 hours. So I'm going to do my time using hours. All right, so 30 minutes, which is also the same thing as 0.5 hours for 4 pages. So 4 over 0.5 equals. And then they want to know how many pages, so that's X number of pages in 4.5 hours. So my proportion equation is 4 over 0.5 equals X over 4.5. So then I can go ahead and cross multiply. So 0.5x equals, and then I have to multiply 4 times 4.5. So that would be 18. So 0.5x is equal to 18. And then I have to divide both sides by 0.5. So actually, 0.5 is the same thing as a half. So this is the way I make it a lot easier on myself. If I'm dividing by a half, that's the same thing as multiplying by 2. And I know 18 times 2 would be 36. So, and if you wrote it out like and did long division, that would be just as well, except it would just take longer. All right, so 36 pages in 4.5 hours. All right, number 12 says, University Law School accepts 2 out of every 7 applicants. If the school accepted 150 students, find how many applications they received. Okay, so we are doing, so we're comparing the number of accepted versus the number applied. And again, if you put it, I'm gonna put accepted over applied, but if you put applied over accepted, that would be just as good, just as long as, like I said, you do it the same for both fractions. Okay, so they accept 2 out of every 7. So 2 over 7 equals, if they accepted 150, how many applications? So accepted is 150, and that's over X, which is the unknown, the number of applications. So 2 over 7 equals 150 over X, and then cross multiply. So 2 times X, 2X equals, so 7 times 150 would be like 1050, and then divide both sides by 2. So that would be X equals 525. So 525 applications that they received. All right, number 13 says, the scale on an Italian map states that 1 centimeter corresponds to 30 kilometers. On the map, a small Italian village is located 0.4 centimeters from the Mediterranean Sea. Find the actual distance. All right. So we are comparing the map distance with the actual distance. So the map distance is given in centimeters, and the actual distance is given in kilometers. All right, so it says that 1 centimeter corresponds to 30 kilometers. So that's going to be 1 over 30 equals. And then when you measure it on the map, this village is 0.4 centimeters from the sea. So 0.4 is the map distance. And then we want to find the actual distance, so that's X. So 1 over 30 equals 0.4 over X. And then we'll cross multiply. So 1 times X is X, and then 30 times 0.4. So X equals 30 times 0.4. So 4 times 30 would be 120, and we need one of those digits to be after the decimal point. So that's 12.0, or you could just say 12. So 12 kilometers. That's all our notes for today. I'll see y'all next week.